morning from Raleigh, North Carolina. This is one of the 14 states that will vote on Super Tuesday, what figures to be the most important night so far of the Democratic presidential campaign. I'm Brett Baer.
And I'm Martha McCallum. Tonight, we are also next door to South Carolina, of course, where there's a big primary on Saturday, one that Joe Biden has said he will win. The stakes are very high for the former vice president's campaign.
One of the hopefuls also needing a strong finish is our guest tonight for this Fox News town hall. Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar is tied for 6th in South Carolina, according to the Real Clear Politics average of polls, and nationally,
she is also in 6th place in the latest Fox News poll. She's hoping to bridge some of that gap between her and the frontrunners over the course of the next week. Please, everybody, give a warm welcome to Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar.
Thank you, Brad. Thanks, guys.
Welcome.
Warm welcome in the Tar Heel State for you.
Yes. Well, I hear you used to work here.
I did,
Yeah.
23 years ago.
Yes.
Let's get right to the audience questions. That's really why we're here. Our first audience question comes from Adrian. She is an undecided voter. It has to deal with the coronavirus.
Okay.
Adrian?
Thank you for being here, Senator. COVID-19, the coronavirus, has spread like wildfire, not only across China, but into other countries, including South Korea, Iran, Italy, and there are a growing number of cases in the U.S. as well. The impact goes well beyond health implications, affecting global trade and finance, as witnessed by the stock market plunge this week. And there's also the consideration of growing fear among our citizens. As president, what steps would you take to contain this disease and to prevent pandemics in the future?
Thank you so much. And this is such a serious matter. We were asked about it at the debate, and I actually noted that a lot of candidates give out their own website, but I gave out the CDC website to take the politics out of this, which is, of course, cdc.gov, for people to get advice on what they should do if they feel sick, to call their healthcare provider, and the like. And I think part of this right now is planning, and it is citizens getting informed. I personally, if you ask what I would have done from the very beginning, and this goes back a few years, I would not have proposed cutting the Center for Disease Control, which the president did, and I would not have proposed cutting out the agency, the group, the coordinating office that coordinates with the rest of the world. But we are where we are right now, and I think it is really important, one, to work with countries around the world, two, to support our health professionals and make sure that they have all of the equipment that they need, three, to support the development of a vaccine, which is months and months and maybe a year away, according to some of the professionals out there, and then to really step back and think that this is one pandemic, but there may be others. And I just don't think we can isolate ourselves from the rest of the world, that we have to work with the rest of the world. I believe in science. I believe in not silencing health professionals. I'm concerned there's some reports about that out there. I think we're going to have to, we are all in this together, and we're going to have to get the information to people. We're going to have the funding on the federal level. The president hasn't really proposed an amount. I think it's important to be clear that funding level can always change, but you want to have a set amount you ask for from Congress so we can move ahead on emergency preparations. And honesty is the best policy here with people. In terms of things that have happened, I thought that was a very messy situation with the 14 people off the cruise that we later found out they were infected and they ended up on the plane. That should have been handled differently. There's all kinds of things, but the most important thing right now is that we work together as a country, move forward, and that everyone be informed and that we plan ahead.
Senator, you said you wanted to take the politics out of this. We've obviously heard all kinds of aggressive characterizations by Democrats, including Speaker Pelosi and Senator Schumer, about the administration's response. And some Democrats are being accused of politicizing or even weaponizing this virus for politics. The New York Times had an op-ed this week, was titled, "Let's Call It Trump Virus. If you're feeling awful, you know who to blame." You obviously want to be commander-in-chief. What would you say to people who say this is a moment to really get behind the president fighting this, no matter the party?
Well, first of all, I think there's a lot of frustration there with not requesting the funding, with the information. I personally called on him to address the nation, which he did the next day after the debate. And so I think that you're seeing that bubbling up, and we don't have an amount of money we're requesting. He said $1 billion, but then the Congress thinks it should be $8 billion. So and then he said Congress should decide. So I think that's a frustration you're seeing. I think in any kind of national crisis, America comes together. We must, and it is not just with the people in Washington, it's with local health professionals who are going to be on the front line, governors and heads of hospitals in local areas like in North Carolina that are going to be giving advice to people on what they should do. So the reason I said the website is because I think people are going to have to step back and depoliticize this, as I said, and do what they should do, because this isn't normal. This isn't normal. This is a really serious thing. People have died, and we want to contain it as much as we can, use quarantine when we must, but make sure that we are treating people and that they get the treatment they need. And what we know about this disease is some people get very sick, and some people don't get that sick. Yeah. So we don't want underreaction, but you don't want overreaction.
Let's go next to Jason, who is currently supporting Michael Bloomberg. Jason.
Hi, Jason.
Hi, Amy. You're currently behind in delegates and in national polls. Is it time?
But I have more delegates than Michael Bloomberg.
This is true. This is very true. Is it time for some of the more moderate candidates, such as yourself, to try and consolidate behind one candidate?
That's a nice verb. But this is what I think has to happen. And North Carolina should care a lot about this because only 3% of the people have voted in this country. And if you look, as you note, at the delegates and you look at the number of votes, because 2 of those states were caucuses, let's not go into caucuses right now, but because 2 of the states were caucuses, I actually have the 3rd biggest vote total in the field right now. And so as we go forward, Super Tuesday, nearly 1/3 of Americans are going to vote. So I think people should have that ability without trying to push people out of this race. And as far as the mayor, I mean, my concern always I am the one that pushed to have him on the debate stage. I don't know if that was a good idea for him, but I pushed for that because I think that you can't just have money determine politics. You just can't. And so he is running constant ads, and that's his right. He can do that. But it creates this uneven playing field, and it doesn't allow Americans to really examine who they want as head of the ticket. I am the only one up there on that stage that actually has won repeatedly in rural areas and in suburban areas, in areas that are more Republican and independent. I've won in Michelle Bachmann's congressional district all 3 times, and I've done it by reaching out and bringing people with us. I think that's what our nation needs right now. I think that's what our party needs. It's a reason that I've gotten the endorsements of not just the New York Times, but also the Houston Chronicle recently, which is a very big newspaper, as well as the San Francisco paper, as well as the Seattle Times paper, as well as today the Bangor, Maine paper. And most of the focus of these, and these are long interviews you do where you answer questions. In the San Jose newspaper, you answer questions about what issues are in their local areas as well as the country. And the reason they've endorsed me is they believe I can unite this country. I know I don't have the biggest bank account, but since the debates, we've been able to bring in from regular people online millions and millions of dollars that have allowed me to continue this campaign the right way, have allowed me to do town halls in places like Raleigh and get to all the states that we need to, as well as run some television ads. So I think we should pick the best candidate, not the candidate that has the biggest bank account.
Okay. So, Senator, you talk about your ability to win in Minnesota and to turn those districts that are generally Republican. There was another Minnesota senator who very much wanted to be president of the United States as well. But Walter Mondale, in the end, when he made it to the general election, won only 1 state. and it was Minnesota. How do you convince Democratic voters that, at the position you're at right now, which is about 6th in the coming primaries, that you can not only win the nomination, but that you have what it takes to win nationwide and not remind them of what happened to the last Minnesota senator?
Okay, well, I first want to defend Walter Mondale. He's 91 years old.
He's a very nice man.
And as you know, he was running against Ronald Reagan in his election. And he was a good vice president. So I just want to put that in there as a defense of, and an excellent senator. As far as my election, that was a long time ago. This is now. And when you look at what we need for a country, we are in such a unique moment. And we truly need someone, in my mind, who can work with people across the aisle. I'm the only one in the Senate that's left on that stage that has a track record of doing that in a big way. I passed over 100 bills as the lead Democrat. The Vanderbilt University in Tennessee last Congress found me the most effective Democrat on 15 different metrics. I think that matters because we have someone in the White House right now that wakes up every morning and sends mean tweets, that wakes up every day and figures out how to create wedges. I think we can do so much better than that as a country. And what I have seen across our nation is a number of people who stayed home in 2016 or people who maybe even voted for Donald Trump that are standing back and they're watching those debates. And believe it or not, they don't agree with everything that's said on the debate stage. I don't agree with everything that's said on the debate stage. But what they do, what unites them is this. They believe that the heart of America is bigger than the heart of the person that's in the White House right now. It is like the cattle rancher that I met in my own state who took me on a tour on an ATV of his ranch as we dodged these big cows, and I thought, this is not how I want to die. And we went into his house afterward. Everyone had left, and he said, we voted for Trump. And I said, what do you mean, the ranchers? And he says, no, I don't like to talk about myself. He said, I did. He said, because I was mad at the time about health care. And he said, but then the day after the inauguration, I saw him standing in front of that wall. And I said, no, the wall's not built. He said, no, the CIA wall. And he remembered when the president gave a partisan speech about the size of his crowd in front of this sacred wall covered in the stars, anonymous stars of the CIA agents that had died in the line of duty. And this guy said, that was bad. I couldn't handle this. And then he went on to explain some other partisan speeches and inappropriate things, and he just said, that was it for me. So I think there's a lot of people that see this election as a decency check. They see it as a patriotism check. They see it in this patriotic state of North Carolina that has produced so many who have served our country. They see a president that stands next to Vladimir Putin, and when he's asked about interference in our election, he makes a joke about it. Think about it. Thousands of people from this great state, hundreds of thousands of people from America have lost their lives standing up for our democracy. That's what World War II was about, standing up for democracies across the world. 4 little girls in a church in Birmingham, Alabama, lost their lives as innocents because they wanted to be part of a democracy, and other people were trying to push it away from them. So many of the greatest moments and the worst moments in our country's history have been about our rights, our freedoms, and our democracies. And this president makes a joke about it.
Senator,
So I want us to remember that. And one of my arguments for my candidacy is I bring people with me. I don't shut them out. And I think we need that right now.
Senator, we have heard, you make the case for your candidacy. I guess, what would you tell somebody who says, I really liked what she said, but what's the path? Tell me the path about how you get the nomination. Are you for a contested convention that you go in and get it there? How do you get to the nomination?
Okay, well, I start with this town hall. Just if everyone watching at home will support me, that could go a long way. So I start with this. And then I just keep going. And we go and we reach people where they are, and we build our support. I started at nearly nothing, and we keep adding more support. I don't know what's going to happen at the convention.
But that's the
I just
plan.
know the people of America have a right to have a candidate that's coming at this in a different way with ideas when it comes to health care and education that aren't pipe dreams, that are actual plans and actually will get things done for people. And so as far as the convention has rules that will be set.
So if Bernie Sanders gets there with a plurality, leading the delegates, and he gets to Milwaukee, you don't think that he should be the nominee?
Now, there's rules in the convention. He may be the nominee. There's rules about how that works from ballot to ballot to ballot, and we have to follow the rules. That's why you set out rules. You can't change the rules in the middle of a game. That's how the rules are, and we will see who wins. Will the field be narrowed down at that point some? I would think it would be, yes. But it shouldn't be narrowed down when only 3% of Americans have voted.
Well, you need to,
certainly you must think this in this state, or
you need to win.
You
need to win Minnesota. You need to win Minnesota.
Well, I think I should win my state. I think I'm 10 points ahead there, and have done a lot of work, and people know me well there.
All right, let's go to Kim Rose, who has a question from the audience. Kim?
Okay.
Hi, Senator.
Hi.
My question is about health care, specifically regarding ACA expansion and how it will help families afford coverage. Can you explain your plan and how it would be more affordable?
Sure. So I think you know the Affordable Care Act did a lot of good things. It protected people so they wouldn't be thrown off their health insurance for pre-existing conditions. One of my fondest memories of this was being in a small town parade and seeing a woman with a stroller, and she pointed at her toddler and she said, this is my son, he has Down syndrome. She said, I will fight for his health care to the end. But then she pauses and she says, but this is what a pre-existing condition looks like. We brought people with us, people from the disability community, people from AARP with us in that fight to preserve the Affordable Care Act. But your question is a good one. How do we make it better? How do we make the premiums more affordable, the drugs more affordable? And I think the way you do that is, first of all, not blowing it up like some of my colleagues, Senator Sanders and Senator Warren, want to do. I did not get on that bill, Medicare for All. There was a lot of pressure to get on it, but I read it. And on page 8 of the bill, it says that it will kick 149 million people off their current health insurance in 4 years. So I don't think that's the answer. But what I do think is the answer is making the Affordable Care Act better. I would put forward a nonprofit public option, something that President Obama wanted to do from the beginning, that would compete with the insurance companies. And one estimate is that for a family making, say, $100,000 a year, family of 4, it would bring the premiums down by 50% because it would simply produce more competition. You could do it with Medicare, that's the one idea, or you could do it with Medicaid. The other thing I would do big time, and there's been bipartisan support for this, is take on the pharmaceutical companies to bring the prices down. Nothing has been done on that, really. And that's why you see these spiraling costs of insulin and other common drugs. I lead the bill to unleash the power of 45 million seniors to negotiate better prices under Medicare. That will make a big difference. Another thing, bringing in less expensive drugs from other countries. In Minnesota, we can see Canada from our porch, and so I am able to see those cheaper prices. And this is a bill I had with my friend Senator McCain. After we sadly lost him, Senator Grassley has stepped in, and we have that bill. Bernie and I did an amendment once at midnight on this exact concept and got 14 Republican senators to vote for it. So, you know, I think that there is support for doing that. It would put enormous leverage on prices, and that's a good idea. You could put a cap tied to international. And the other things I'd add for health care is addiction, as well as mental health. There is still so much stigma about getting treatment for both addiction and mental health. And I actually have a plan, and I show how I'm going to pay for it, to get treatment out to people that need it and make sure that we have enough hospital beds, especially in rural areas. It's really hard to get help for mental health, counselors in schools. We've had a 30% increase in suicides in this country in just 15 years. Just to give you a sense of what we're talking about. It's not just people you read about in the news. It is the raw numbers, and it's a lot of veterans farmers, LGBTQ community, kids. It's a very disturbing thing that's going on in our country. And just to let you know how much I want to get this done with the mental health and the treatment, for me it's personal. My dad struggled with alcoholism my whole life growing up. By the time my husband and I got married, he had 3 DWIs. On the 3rd one, the judge said to him, treatment or jail. And he chose treatment, and it changed his life. He is now 91. He is sober. He is in assisted living. His AA group still visits him there. And in his words, it's hard to get a drink around here anyway. But it has truly changed his life. And I think everyone should have that same right to be pursued by grace. Yeah. And there is a way to do that. And those are his words. His treatment, his faith, his family got him to that point.
Senator, Senator Elizabeth Warren on the debate stage said your website had your health care plan that was the size of a Post-it note. You pushed back on that. That sounded a little bit more detailed than the Post-it note. Go ahead. Yeah,
well, one, it was, Minnesota invented the Post-it note, so I took it personally. But secondly, it's been found now by 2 fact-checking organizations to be patently false. After the debate, after millions of people saw her say it, it turned out to be totally false. Right. The health care plan is many, many, many pages, and it involves in greater detail than I just shared with you, including how I'm going to pay for things, how we will get this done.
But when you see polls like our new Fox News poll that says Democrats, more than 60%, some even higher, want Medicare for all, how do you answer them?
I answer with the truth and the facts. And I think these debates should serve that purpose, that people see what this really means. It sounds really good on paper, but as we know, these plans, first of all of Bernie's plans combined, the Medicare for all and many things, have been estimated to be $60 trillion. Just to be clear, as well-intentioned as they are, that is 3 times the cost of the entire U.S. economy. Not the federal government. I know people often use that as a measure. Everything you're doing, the whole U.S. economy. And so I just don't think that is where people are going to go when they understand that. And mostly, they don't want to be kicked off their health care, 149 million Americans. And there is a way to do this and make it better. And that is by creating this nonprofit public option, which I mentioned, which is what Barack Obama wanted to do in the first place.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with more questions with Senator Amy Klobuchar in Raleigh, North Carolina, right after this. Stay with us.